Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm back with the Journey to Union podcast. As a lot of you know, the whole idea of this is kind of, ultimately just finding purpose, like being present, and we tackle a bunch of different disciplines. I'm really excited about today. I've got a good friend of mine, Dustin Powers here. We talk about this idea of pursuing self-liberty. He's actually the one I got it from. A lot of people talk it on various fronts. He actually lives it. So Dustin, thanks for making the trip out today. I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. So I guess just to give everyone a little bit of background on yourself, why don't you explain everyone your day-to-day life, what it looks like, and then you can maybe paint a little color around that.
Sure. Yeah, so my little family and I, my partner and our son, we live out on the coast of Washington. We own 40 acres up in the hills that we manage as a kind of a regenerative agricultural project. We also have several other properties around town, including one that we raise a bunch of cattle on. So my day usually starts out about 5:30 with my son awake and ready to get out of his crib. And the rest of the day is kind of just working a little bit off of our project board, but it's mainly pursuing activities that are going to increase our food supply or are going to allow us to teach other people how they can increase their food supplies. What I really realize is that, if you start looking at your basal needs, that food is kind of like at the top of the list, and you can't really buy food as good as you can grow. So we really pursued at a high level, how can you grow the majority of your food?
So let me simplify this for everyone really quick, just to put some color around it. Basically, if the whole economic system freezes up and goes to shit and everything ceases to work, I'm calling Dustin. That's where I want to be. It's fully self-sustaining, right? Like From A to Z, you don't rely on any economic stimulus.
Yeah, no, I definitely will not be getting any stimulus. We applied for some, but I don't see it happening. But we really got to a point, and I follow a lot of different disciplines under the permaculture sphere, and one of the ones is...
Can you explain permaculture real quick?
Yeah, it's a design science based on identifying successful natural patterns and applying them to life. It's really easy to identify that through agriculture, but I've done classes on how to apply that to a cannabis business, how to apply that to all different aspects of life. So using that design science through agriculture, we can identify how can you create successful natural systems that need maybe a lot of input up front to get them established, but then need less and less input and become more and more productive. So right now we're producing the majority of our calories is with the cattle that we manage on property that we lease. So for about $1,000 a year, and then another $1,000 to insure all these cows, we get 40-ish acres. That includes the power and the water, and that is producing 3 to 4 mature cows a year in the freezer. So that's way more food than my little immediate family can eat. So it's also feeding my extended family and some of my friends. I brought you some beef today. That cost me almost nothing to produce that little bit of beef that I brought you. And the beautiful thing about cows is they fuck and they multiply for free. So as long as it rains and there's sun, they're going to eat the grass. And being a proper manager, I move them around so that they're eating the grass at the right time, and free food comes out of that system constantly. And once I found that out and started growing most of my own food, I started realizing how much money I was saving. And I realized that, a lot of people work just to feed themselves. And, there's a long story behind how we got to where we are with owning our property, and these things didn't just fall in our lap. And it's been a lot of sacrifice to get there. But now that we're there, now that I have most of this stuff all paid for, and it's just, as long as I pay my property taxes, I get to keep my property, and it produces most of my own food. Like, there's not a whole lot else out there that, I actually found that I started to lose my drive for entrepreneurship in a way because I didn't really care about the money anymore.
So back up on this, right? Because I think a lot of people, even when pursuing money, like the end goal is freedom. Like that was my thing. Like I just wanted freedom. So we're all out for that, but a lot of people don't just wake up and kind of, like it never clicks. Like all I need for freedom is really a self-sustaining lifestyle, and I need to be able to feed myself and take care of myself, right? So at what point along this path did it kind of click for you that the system was what it was and this was the path to freedom?
Yeah, I was going to Washington State, and I got introduced to mushrooms, and 2.5 years in, I decided to drop out. I had started for a business degree, switched over to an ag degree, had joined the fraternity, was the weed guy that had kind of started ramping up. And I did a bunch of mushrooms one time, and I was like, why the hell am I here accruing all this debt for a degree I don't plan on using? Meanwhile, making all this money on the medical side of cannabis at the time. I was like, screw college, I'm going to go do this cannabis thing. It's a way better idea. That really ramped up. And I started listening to the wrong kinds of podcasts and started going just deep down the conspiracy wormhole. Mm-hmm. And to the point where I got so deep in the conspiracies that you start looking at, well, is this a false flag? Is this a conspiracy that was made to just distract me from reality? And what conspiracy isn't that?
And we talk about those a lot of the time. And at the end of the day, like most of them, just it doesn't matter. Like the answer is the same. Like whether it was intentional or incompetence, whatever it might have been, like on the conspiracy front, it just doesn't matter. Like,
can you do anything about it?
Exactly.
And if not, what are you wasting your time with it? And we'll get into this in a little bit about our current state of of affairs with this coronavirus and everything. But the point is, I switched my podcast to the survival podcast, and his motto is always preparedness for if times get tough or even if they don't. So can I make my life better today? And will those improvements work out if things change tomorrow? So all of this planning and preparing that we've been doing, got all my food preps up, I could go for, and we did this step by step, but right now I could go for a year without buying or producing any more food. I could go for a year without making a single other dollar at this point with my current expenses. I could probably go like 5 years, honestly, without making another dollar. Started diversifying those savings into Bitcoins, gold, silver, ammo, guns, more land that produces more food. We started building these blocks because I originally bought the land as a bug out because I freaked out about all these conspiracies. I said, the government's fucking us. Everybody's out to get us. I'm freaking out, because I grew up in Tacoma in the city, kind of like where we are now, and I just saw everybody in the grind, just hating life and everything. I was like, I gotta go. I gotta get out of this system. So we bought land, and I lived in a trailer out there for a year and a half while I was still doing the grind until I really locked down. And we knew that we wanted to pursue permaculture at the time, but a big part of permaculture is, as far as land management goes, is to get land and then watch and learn from the land before you go do anything crazy. So I spent that first year out there just experiencing the forest and the land and the way it rains and the way the wind blows, and made our decisions from there on how to then further develop it. And that really helped reset my mind. And that, breakaway from society basically gave me this outside look at what was going on and really opened my eyes to we're getting hosed.
It's not a good.
No, we're getting used for our sweat equity, and we're not reaping the benefits of that work that we're putting in.
Absolutely. So a lot of people hear this, right? And actually, quick question: how long did it take you to get to that point where it was, from when you bought the land to the point you were fully?
Oh, a long time. Yeah. So we bought the first property in 2012, and I had already been in the gardening a little bit. I was growing a little bit of weed and started growing tomatoes and stuff. It wasn't until we started really doing the cows at a larger scale. So probably like 3 years ago was when we shifted from growing maybe like 20-30% of our food to now we're growing like 80-90% of our food. And it's really beef is the solution there. You want to grow enough vegetables to feed yourself, good luck.
Yeah. No, for sure. So a lot of people probably hear this too and think like, if they're picturing like farm lifestyle or that sort of thing, like, oh, maybe it's not for me or whatever. But that's not what your life's like at all. Like,
no,
you just got back from Spain, like,
don't
Puerto Rico. Like,
if you're just listening to this, I'm not wearing my suspenders right now. I also live a normal life, and don't get me wrong, there's needs and then there's wants and desires.
You're
right?
doing what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't mean you can't have a nice car.
Like, where'd you just get back from?
We were in Europe. We did a whole tour through Europe, which it was kind of a great time and it was kind of a terrible time.
Yeah, it was an interesting time to end
sure.
up over there.
But
you're in Barcelona when they locked down, right?
Yeah, for sure. For Spanibus, which got canceled the day before. So through my professional life, like this, let's migrate into the Good Life gang real quick. Kind of a good transition. So about 3 years ago, and going back to the cannabis thing, I was a weed slinger for a long time, and I got into the science side of cannabis, and we kind of started developing these novel approaches to doing different things in the cannabis industry. Built up a large following on my Instagram, Future 4200. Teamed up with some of like the biggest players in the game to develop all sorts of weird technology. Converted all of that into a forum, future4200.com. It's free. It's the leading source of information for cannabis processing on earth. I use that as a funnel to get people into my membership discount club, which is the Good Life Gang.
Mm-hmm.
You pay me, I can save you tens of thousands of dollars on setting up or running your cannabis processing facility.
It's a good industry to be in right now.
Yeah. It was a lot better like 3 months ago, or even like last month was a boom because everybody was panic buying.
Yeah.
We're seeing a pretty stark downtick right now, and I'm seeing much less expansion. There's a lot less people building labs. Everybody's constricting right now. Everybody's trying to play it safe with their money, right?
Still better than airlines right now.
Part of that membership discount, way better. Why don't they just got a lot of money? The back end of that membership discount club is we do regional meetups all over the world, and usually it's 50 to 100 people come out to these evening events where we do networking. We've got a bunch of food, so we'd really started scaling it up. This was actually the year where we had like every other weekend planned for the next 6 months, mirroring cannabis conventions. Right.
Nice.
Well, traveling, conventions, meeting up with a bunch of people, all of that just got canceled like completely. So, but it was allowing me to expense a pretty cool like travel lifestyle, which my lady loved because I was bringing them along. So we were in Hawaii the week before we went to Europe for 4 weeks. And then we were in Puerto Rico scoping out some new business opportunities like 3 weeks prior to that for a month. And I listened to Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, and he gave me a lot of really good ideas on how to automate your life. So this Good Life Gang, other than the traveling aspect, the actual financial income side of it, fully automated.
Really?
The only work is I subcontract out my partner Julia, her business, to do like administrative work. So today I didn't interact with it at all. It still brought in like 2 new members, and that's regular. So it pays the bills automatically, which leaves more of that free time for me to do whatever I want throughout my day.
How'd you come up with the idea to begin with?
So that podcast I was telling you about, the survival podcast, he has sponsors at the front end, but he also has a membership support brigade. You join that, you get discounts on your seeds, your ammo, all this stuff to be a prepper, like your food storage, everything. One of Tim Ferriss's models was see other opportunities that are successful and reapply them to your own niche. And so I was sitting on my excavator listening to that, relatively high on mushrooms, working the farm, and he said that and it clicked.
That seems to be the answer. Mushrooms for everything.
They opened my eyes. I'm telling you, like some of my best ideas have come from taking mushrooms, and it worked. I was like,
me both.
I could do this. So at the time, I had helped multiple cannabis manufacturing companies come up off the ground. Like these were my friends that started their own businesses that are now, $10-15 million businesses. And I went to them and I said, look, I got this crazy idea. I just need like 5 of you guys to work with me. And they were all like, yeah, great, no problem. Once we got to about 15 people, that's when I started getting everybody else in the industry is like, hey, we want to be a part of your gang. And so now we're at the point where we have a strict filter on what other companies we allow to come in. I just jacked the idea from Jack Spirko.
And what were you doing at the time when you first had the idea? Like, have you ever worked a 9 to 5?
Never a 9 to 5. I've had odd jobs. I delivered pizza in high school, and I worked when I dropped out. I was working the winters. I would do the first winter after I dropped out. I lived in a bus at the ski resort and worked like I ski bummed it. And then every year after that, I worked like a weekend, a month, or something to get the free pass. But
I just have this theory, like it's impossible. It seems like you've spent a lot of time just being able to study and kind of deep dive, right? Even reading Tim Ferriss's book and that sort of thing, and that triggers ideas and that kind of drives progression. I think most people are on that wheel where it's like work, Netflix, junk food, bed, repeat, coffee.
That's the wheel.
That's the wheel.
Complete hamster wheel.
How can you have a good idea?
I want to say it was I think it was you that posted this quote, and it must have been years ago, but it was something about like you need to have solitude to get into that. I know we talked about this. And for me it was driving, because I had this huge route where I'd go from like Southern Oregon up to Northern Washington, up to Bellingham to see you guys, and then I'd go out to Salt Lake City and round trapping, dude, straight trapping and delivering herbs. And so I'd spend like 4 days awake in the car, like straight up. I played around with a lot of different like performance
Adderall is a hell of a drug.
Yeah, Adderall, but I got on the modafinil, which is way better. You've seen that movie Limitless? Yeah, that's derivative of that drug, which is a whole different game. But point being, I had massive amounts of time in my own head, not interacting with anybody or doing anything but listening to podcasts, and then I'd turn it off and I'd go in silence for a long period of time, like to the point where I got this crazy highway hypnosis. I'd lose track of time, but I came up with just incredible ideas when I had that.
It's meditative, right?
Yeah, meditative, straight up. And I miss that part of that life. I don't have as much of that anymore. I get a little relief when I'm snowboarding, especially if I'm on mushrooms again. And then that got canceled this year. So now, and you're not supposed to drive. There's not really anywhere to go. So I've lost a lot of that meditative part of my life.
You got to start actually meditating, bro.
Yeah, I know. But life, like you said earlier, life catches up to you. You tell someone that's working a 9 to 5 that's in the grind, you got to meditate. I'm like, I don't have any time.
Yeah, so I don't have no time.
That's where I'm at with it.
I got my Netflix.
I got
show,
a kid. I got a farm to manage. I got to be more disciplined. I got to get up earlier and meditate. That's my trade-off.
Creating the habits, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned earlier Bitcoin, right? Like all this economic stuff going on right now. You said it's like $13 trillion or whatever that we're...
Something like that. They're being very cagey about keeping track of it. They should have started a running tally and had like a government website tell us exactly how much you printed.
They don't work like that.
No.
So what's your I mean, what is going on? What's your outlook for the American dollar, and what's your belief in Bitcoin?
Yeah. So let's start with Bitcoin and then we'll deconstruct what's going on. So I got into Bitcoin a long time ago as a transactional medium. It was really easy to trade herbs for.
Granted, your history you were just talking about.
Yeah, okay. You connect the dots. But I never got into Bitcoin thinking that, this is a thing that's going to be one day worth $20,000. It's like when we got in, it was $150, and I was shown the way, and they said, you're going to trade this much herbs for this much cash for this much Bitcoin, and there's this little cycle, and here's the guys that connect the dots, and you do it this way.
Got your wallet.
And it was great. What happened was when it went up to 20,000, my partner and I started looking through some of our old work phones, and we realized that we had like 15 coins laying around that are just, you got half a coin here, and when it's at $150, it's a work phone, we just got them laying around, whatever. So that was the real point where we realized, hey, we should be saving Bitcoins. We need to make a conscious effort to start adding this into our investment portfolio. And I try not to keep any more than like 5% in any one diverse little asset other than land. Land is like my primary hold. And I include like liquid cash in that. I'll run liquid cash up a little bit more because it is so liquid. Like I try to keep like 10-15% of my total investment in cash. But
are you talking paper cash or at the bank?
Liquid, yeah. And a month ago, I would have told you that the bank was just as liquid, but I have minimal of my 10-15% like cash holdings. I'm at like 5% in the banks right now, where I was closer to 50% a month ago. Yeah. Things got a little sideways there. Kind of what we're.
I don't trust banks at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. As soon as the Fed removed the reservation requirement, because normally the banks are required.
Lending?
They're required to keep 10%. That's how the fractional reserve, the fraction that they had to keep was 10% of what you gave them.
Which is still crazy.
Which is still absolutely madness. That means 10% of the people can go get their money and the other 90% are not screwed because the FDIC insures it because they'll print that money.
Print more.
Now, they promise that they'll do that, and that's supposed to be a good thing. But if 90% of the nation wants to go get its money, and the solution is just to print all that money, you're too late. You're too late. That money is no longer valuable enough for what you need it to be. So I said I'm going to be earlier on that, and I pulled out. What I did with all that bank money is instead of getting a loan for the house that we're building, which was it was a shit show with the lending guy. I think he's losing his ass. So I pre-bought all of the materials for the house. I just went over and I said, look, here's 30 racks. I'm going to buy all the materials I need for this right now. And then the only stipulation I had with the lumberyard is if we're not allowed to build, I need you to store this for me. They're like, yeah, great. We can definitely take a $30,000 cash infusion right now. Sounds good. Because, the banks are sketchy, for sure. They removed that 10% limit. It's now 0%. The banks are no longer required, and they're being encouraged to lend all the money out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they said, we'll just print it and back it. We're good.
And I've gotten to the point, too, I don't even know if you can say it's crazy, you can say whatever it is, but it just is. Like modern monetary theory that we can print limitless money is here, and it's happening. And, I don't think it ends well, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Why do we pay taxes then if we can just print as much?
That's what I don't understand. Yeah.
You got any guesses?
No, other than to lower the value of your sweat equity, to keep you subservient.
Yeah, because I found an interesting statistic yesterday, and it's like Warren Buffett's secretary pays a higher tax rate than him by quite a bit. So it's if there was any true value in taxes, he'd be paying, you know, something worth his weight in.
Yeah, and I understand the economic idea of taxing, of how they tax or don't tax the rich, and it's not that they're not getting taxed, it's that they're not making very much money, and that's kind of
they're
like
not making very much
Bezos
money.
Is worth a shit ton of money. He doesn't actually make very much money. So a smart person just sees that and follows in that lead, right? And
100%.
the idea is that it's supposed to stimulate business, small businesses, medium businesses,
Which
large
it can.
businesses.
Like Bezos does it right. Like
right.
Bezos, most of his losses are reinvested into starting new ventures.
Right.
And that's supposed to propel the economic engine. Like I'm all for that.
Sure.
It makes.
Yeah. And that's where me personally, that's where I'm at too. I've got, 5 or 6 different businesses
I know your accountant.
He's good. Yeah. I constantly push him and he's always telling me red flags.
No, but I mean,
it's legit. We follow tax code to the 100%. Law.
Like they do set up.
Because tax aversion is not the same as tax avoidance.
And
trying to avoid paying taxes is completely legal. Where it gets weird with me is we don't have any employees. And the idea is that you've got all this to stimulate employees. But I run on a strict no employee business. Everybody that works with us is a subcontractor.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to encourage other people to start their own businesses so that they can get into the same model.
So I guess jumping on that billionaire thing, this is a question I just wanted to ask you on record. Bill Gates, good guy or bad guy? It's just kind of you research some of these topics, so I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, I don't know, man. He's really, really shady, or there's too many coincidences for it to be.
There's a lot of them, isn't there?
There's a lot of them. A lot of really like in your face, like some of the documentaries he's doing last fall, the patents that he has on some of the like corona-based viruses, the agenda that they're pushing that we need to all have vaccines. And by the way, I sell the vaccine. That's a little weird. And he's gotten in trouble with this before. The country of India has lawsuits against him for some of his vaccine moves. And I'm not anti-vaccine either. I think that we aren't properly administrating vaccines, or we're overloading vaccines, but
your kid is vaccinated?
Yeah, he's got most of his vaccines. We spaced it out a little bit. I didn't want to overload him. I didn't give him the one at birth. I think that's absurd. And, we could go down a crazy wormhole with the vaccines, but it just follow the money, really, right?
On most things, I guess that's my thing on Bill. It's like, if nothing else, I don't think there's media is going to portray a picture based off, financial means, and he has a lot. So I just don't think we have an accurate picture to who he is, and he's involved in some interesting projects. So
yeah, and I mean at the base level, he's disconnected from reality because he doesn't live in reality because he's worth so much money. That his reality is such a small percentage of the world's reality that he couldn't even.
Well, it's no one else's reality.
Yeah, him and Bezos, they're kind of in the same boat, and they live in their own little bubble because how could they know what it's like to be a poor single mom living in the projects with 4 kids, right? Like there's no way. And then they have the audacity to say, oh, we should just mandate everybody get a vaccine. By the way, it hasn't been fully vetted, but we'll know by the end of this how it goes.
But you should do it. Talib is awesome. That was where the first one, I'm a big Nassim Talib guy, and that was the first person I saw really attack Bill Gates on a number of things. And that's why I was like, if he's attacking him, because he was ahead of the Montesano thing, and so the first one I saw. But pivoting back on that too, we were kind of talking about, I referenced this quote the other day. It's one of my favorite things, but the 3 most addicting things in life is heroin, a carbohydrate, and a monthly salary.
Yeah, I bet.
And that's where you get hit on, as we said, it devalues your sweat equity.
Yep.
Like it keeps you on that hamster wheel. You can't make enough salary to ever get free.
Yep.
Whereas if you structure your business a certain way and deep dive into like how the system actually works, that's where real freedom lies.
Yeah, sure.
Or you go, I mean, you've done both, right? Like you set yourself up for, again, like if things froze up for real, I mean, I like to think I hopefully have a place out there at the farm, but I mean, really, like you'd be all right. Like, cause it's not out of the realm of possibilities for the economic engine to freeze,
sure,
for supply to dry up, and then demand to go through the roof, and then all of a sudden people are going hungry.
Yeah,
and you'd be chilling. Yeah,
especially if we, we've restricted most of the agricultural labor force to not come to the country. Which it's not just about harvesting; it's about producing the food. Who's going to prune all the apples and the grapes? Who's going to do all of the maintenance stuff that happens throughout the year? It's not just harvest and process. We got to get there first.
Free market's dead, and it's sad, but I mean it's what's going on.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing because a lot of the death of free market was under the guise of safety. We need to protect the consumer.
It's always been safety. Like the Patriot Act was safety.
Yeah.
Like now they can read your emails and read your texts, but it's safety.
Yeah,
national security is what
but
they
was
called
that more dangerous than? And this is the question that I posed, maybe like a month ago, really early on. Is the virus more dangerous than the economic consequence of shutting down the economy?
I mean, that's a hell of a question. Like
And what is it? So we get out of lockdown, and then we go through herd immunity. That's the next step, right? The coronavirus is never going away. COVID, whatever you want to call it, COVID-19 is with us forever, like the flu, like the cold. They said this will just always go on. Eventually, we'll build up enough immunities. The people that would have died from it will die from it, and we'll go on our way.
It probably won't be as much of a headline then either.
No, what's killed more people this year, the flu or the coronavirus?
It flew by quite a bit,
which is weird. And
the whole thing's weird.
I'm not saying that there's not a virus and that people aren't dying from it. I know people personally that have died from it.
It's an issue. Yeah.
But then you also look at, okay, they're also, if you fall off a cliff and happen to have coronavirus, which one killed you? Right?
I mean, don't even get into the statistical manipulation.
Yeah. And if we actually knew how many people had the virus, we could have spent a fraction of the money that they printed on testing antibodies. We would have known how many people had it, and we could have very strictly, quarantined the at-risk and the people that have the disease. And everybody else that already had it and didn't show any symptoms and is perfectly fine, back to work, back to normal. That's how this works.
I mean, one thing we can agree on is it's been horribly handled. Horribly handled. I don't know if that's incompetence or intentional, but we could talk about that forever. I know we're running out of time here a little bit. I wanted to drill down, kind of pivoting one more time here, on CBD as a whole, because it's an area of fascination for myself. Like I experiment with CBD all the time, but I have I'm a pretty data-driven individual, and I have a hard time getting through a lot of the, like the data out there is all over the place. Mm-hmm. I mean, just for top level, what are like the main benefits of
the best use I've seen for CBD in its own isolated form is topically for reduction of inflammation. That is like best and highest use. From there, the next best use I've seen personally is through Parkinson's, especially with a combination of like CBG and a little bit of THC. Hardcore, and epilepsy, you can kind of go into the same line, like straight therapeutic response.
So wait, you hit on something there though. Does it need you said like it needs to be combined with THC?
Doesn't need to be, but it's highly interpersonal. So different people have different interactions. Same with epilepsy. Some kids react super negatively to any THC at all. It makes their seizures worse. So if they have CBD isolate, they function much better. Some get no relief from CBD isolate and need a little bit of THC, and they don't know what the difference is. And that right there is the key point. They don't know because CBD only became legal, really a few years ago, which meant up until then there was no research being done on it. So that we have like a massive pile of research that's happening rapidly, but what we don't have is then people taking that research and extrapolating it out into the next layer of research.
Phase. And that's where I'm at, right? You can get a lot of
right.
Yeah.
Let me take that and use it to find out something new, and then we'll do a study on that. And that's where the interesting data.
Well, in my industry too, I mean, you get those even initial like positive responses, and people love to
for sure.
From cures cancer to I mean, people get aggressive with the claims. But.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for sure, BCAAs or creatine. You've seen those cycle through like the craziest.
Absolutely.
When creatine first dropped,
things go boom, and then no, for sure. So topically, any brands you recommend?
There's like out of Colorado, CBD Distillery is a really solid brand. We've got a company, Confetti. We make CBD pre-rolls, high-end hemp that we get out of Southern Oregon, roll it up. That is like the ultimate old man weed. Like a lot of our dads or uncles don't like the weed that they're buying at the store, gets them too high. These CBD pre-rolls is like the perfect, especially if someone was smoking cigarettes before and looking for something to kind of like phase off. Yeah, that seems to be a pretty good use. It's not going to get you high. It's got a little bit of an uplifting effect, but for the habitual smoker, it's great. Is it?
Do people sleep better? Is that?
Sure. If you want to believe that it makes you sleep better, and you do believe that it makes you sleep better, probably will help.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of that has to do with the terpenes too. Some of the potentiation that you're getting from the terpene, especially if you're like smoking the flower. Now, if you're getting an isolate, you're just getting the isolate. And wholesale prices of isolate right now are about $400 a kilo. So if you're paying, that the biggest problem with CBD is that people are overpaying for under dosages.
Yeah, because you need a lot, like 10 to 20 milligrams was sold minimum as the dose.
Yeah.
No, but you really.
10 to 20. Yeah, no, the research shows like 5 to 10 milligrams per kilogram of body weight being an effective dose for anything.
Yeah. So you're talking. Wait, what does that translate to most people? Like me at 200 pounds. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's like 300 or 400 milligrams. 300 or 400 milligrams a day is kind of like the statistical
of what you want.
Yeah, for therapeutic response.
Yeah.
Now there's the idea that you can build it up. Now, so there's some important things to know about CBD too. It's not perfectly safe. It itself is, but it can have serious interactions with other drugs. If you any kind of cytokine reaction drugs, you can have a really bad effect from it, and there has been several deaths now. It's bad for your immune system. It's specifically your immune system and how it interacts with coronavirus. If you're consuming a bunch of CBD, it can make you more susceptible to the coronavirus.
Well, that's worth knowing nowadays.
It's important.
So I'm gonna cut that clip out and post it all over Instagram. Awesome. Well, Dustin, thank you so much for taking the time for joining us. If people want to reach you and talk more, where can they reach you at?
Yeah, best bet's just on Instagram. I'm Future4200. That's kind of what I interact with the randos the most.
Awesome. Well, awesome. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and hopefully do this again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome.